Well, welcome to week 6 of the Elevate AEC experience. Today is a big day as we kick off with the 2020 Hot Firm celebration and panel discussion and conclude with our final Elevate Her cohort presentation. We're going to begin by celebrating the Hot Firm list, the longest running awards program at Zweig Group. Inspired by the Inc. 500 list, the Hot Firm list recognizes one of the most important metrics of success, and that is growth. The Hot Firm list is the top 100 fastest growing firms in the AEC industry and has been celebrated for over 20 years with an awards gala fit for the stars of Hollywood. This year, the Oscars level red carpet celebration is not happening in the opulent ballroom we had reserved in downtown Denver. And instead, the celebration has already occurred in people's offices, in outdoor spaces, in their living rooms, and at the kitchen counter. Congratulations to the 2020 Hot Firma winners. Thank you all for your submitted video celebrations. It's so important for us to celebrate growth. And now it is an honor and a privilege to introduce Dickerson Wright, Chairman and CEO of NV5, who will share some remarks as he accepts the #1 Hot Firm Award. Dickerson, over to you.
Thank you, Chad. It is truly an honor to be recognized by the Zweig Group, and we continue to want to be an active and supportive member. As you know, we've been recognized for 4 years straight as the #1 hot firm, and we think now it's time that we probably will not be submitting again to the Hot Firm Award because we want to give this opportunity to other firms to be recognized and be selected as a #1 firm going forward as a hot firm. But that does not mean that NV5 will not be very involved with Zweig Group. It's been a great relationship. We think our people and our management group has really benefited from it. And so we want to thank the Zweig Group for the opportunity to be recognized and be part of the operations. A couple of comments I may make that would give a little bit better clarity on our NV5. As many of you know, we are a publicly traded firm and probably one of the few on the Zweig list of firms that are publicly traded. So as a publicly traded firm, our results are always published. They are the results of how we're growing organically, what our revenue is. It's published in what we call a 10K once a year. And anyone in the public can go and see what we are doing and the operations that we have or the results we've had for the year. Also, it gives the opportunity for anyone to fact check us. We just can't, as a public company, we cannot just put numbers out there or say what we're doing. It has to be factually proven, and it has to be recognized by the Securities and Exchange Commission to be truly the results of NV5. All of our finances are audited by a Big Four firm, so rest assured that there's always a transparency and clarity in our results. And however, though, there's another way for all of you, and we really appreciate your doing this. There's another way for anyone to follow NV5 and what we are doing. We release our results quarterly. We say what we're doing in organic growth. We say what we're doing in earnings. We say what we're doing in our balance sheet and our leverage capacity and our finance information. It's all there for the public to see. So quarterly, we release publicly our results, and then we host an earnings call. And any questions that the audience may have can be asked. And we have a narrative that actually tells the state of the company and also some of the inner workings of the company. So I invite everyone this year. It's on November 11th, and it's at 4:30 after the market closes. And we're open for anyone to ask any questions they'd like about us. And so that's a brief clarity and transparency of NV5. But I want to close by saying this has truly been an honor to be recognized by Zweig Group, and I encourage everyone to be active participants in the group because it is truly, there's many of the sessions, and if you've participated in many of the sessions, you will see, unlike many other groups, It is really constructive. We have learned a lot. Our people, our management has grown from it. And so we will continue to be an active member with Zweig Group. It's just that we will not be submitting for the Hot Firm Awards going forward, but we encourage everyone to do so, and we look forward to the results that you will have going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dickerson. We've learned a lot from you over the years and continue to learn from you. And so thank you so much for sharing that. The NV5 story is inspiring, and we are delighted to be able to share this moment with you virtually. Up next, we will now hear from our number 2, number 3, and number 4 hot firms and get some insight on their journey of growth. I'm joined today by Jamie Claire Kaiser, our Managing Principal and Director of Advisory Services. To get started, I would like to welcome our panelists to the virtual stage. We've got Bryan Carruthers, CEO of Anser Advisory, Ozzie Nelson, Chairman and CEO of Nelson Worldwide, and Paul Greenhagen, CEO of Westwood Professional Services, who also has the distinction of being our 2019 Courage and Leadership Award winner. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. We're going to start by having each of you introduce yourself, your firm, and a little bit about growth in your firm. Bryan, we'll start with you.
Hey, thanks, Chad. I really appreciate the opportunity, and like Dickerson, really appreciate everything Zweig does for the industry. I'm Bryan Carruthers, CEO of Anser Advisory. We're a national, we call it capital program advisory firm, engaging with owners of capital projects, programs within infrastructure and transportation to lead them from a management consulting perspective through the strategic planning of a capital project and program, and then provide tactical management oversight of the execution of those projects and programs. Really appreciate being here, and just a little bit about our growth story is truly fundamentally believing in organic growth as the foundation to a healthy professional services firm, and then using acquisitive growth as an accelerant to achieve additional strategic growth opportunities, always when there's an alignment around fit future of how a firm joining us would be able to further contribute to what it is that Anser is. And I know we'll get into some more questions later on, so I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Bryan. Up next, Ozzie Nelson. Ozzie, I can't hear you.
I guess that'll help. I'm off mute. I said I would echo everyone's comments of, first of all, thanking Zweig for everything that your organization does to contribute to the leadership and the professionalism of our industry. And also congratulations to all of the firms that are on the hot list for 2020. Nelson is a design, architecture, and engineering firm. We have leaned heavily on merger acquisition as we were a much smaller firm, a firm of about $5 million in annual revenue when I joined the firm. And we have our high water mark right before COVID was about $175 million. We've grown at a rate of about 500% during my tenure as CEO, and we've completed 40 merger acquisitions during that time. So while the merger acquisition will slow compared to what it has been, we'll look for much more balanced growth, both in terms of organic growth with the right merger opportunities. In terms of industries that we touch, we're a matrix organization with 24 offices around the country and then 10 practices. In most of our practices, we're in top 5 in industry ranking and touch a wealth of customers that range from hospitality leaders, retail leaders, corporate leaders. So my great pleasure to be here today.
Thank you, Ozzie. Paul, welcome.
Thanks, Chad. Again, I just like the others, I appreciate all that Zweig does for the industry. You've been a great mentors and consultants to me as I've been Westwood CEO since 2010. Since that time, we've grown on average a little more than 20% per year. So we've grown from about 22 million when I took over in 2010 to I think we'll be about 158 this year. So through that, we've tried to balance that growth. It's been about 50% acquisition, about 50% organic, and at the same time, trying to maintain our place on your best places to work firm list. So our people are our greatest assets. So making sure they're happy and excited about being part of our team is really important. So we focused on very strategic and focused growth over those years. And I think this is our 5th time in the top 10 here for your hot firms, and we appreciate that opportunity.
Outstanding. Well, welcome all 3 of you. Thanks so much for being here. To get us started, Jamie Claire is going to get us kicked off with some really hard questions before she heads to prepare for our Elevate Her Symposium, which follows this session. Jamie Claire, over to you.
Perfect. So I guess we all just learned that the #1 spot on the hot firm list is available. So for a certain amount of money. No, I'm just kidding. So we'll get into some more specific and detailed questions, but I kind of just wanted to kick it off by asking each of you, what phase of your company's growth was just the most fun for you? When was the time that you just felt like, all right, I'm loving this? There's no way the answer is 2020.
Maybe I'll go first. I think it was, and I would tag it to a revenue number, probably, going from 50-ish million to under 100 million. A lot of small merger acquisition in succession. And I think we were really at that point where we were still able to operate more like a smaller company, and the scale did not really dictate the kind of discipline that we see today. So I think, and I think that the merger integration work was not as intensive as when we started to acquire larger firms. So that's been our personal experience, but it's probably different, a little bit different for everyone.
I think I'm looking forward to our continued future growth, because I think in many ways we're still just getting started. And there's a lot of very exciting steps that we'll be taking as we move forward. I'd say the most fun part is over the last couple of years, as we've really been growing and coming together as an organization with several acquisitions, has been taking the best parts of each legacy firm that's joined us and really working those best parts into the fabric of what Anser Advisory is together, and defining collectively what Anser Advisory is through those best components, which has really been an opportunity to see best-in-class approaches that some of our smaller legacy firms have had, and then can become the foundation for an Anser standard. And that's been really enjoyable for me personally, and I think for the organization has allowed us to feel like one single organization, even though our history includes many lengthy legacies.
All right. I think 17, 18, 19, those years we saw substantial growth, and we really had an opportunity to see, the foundation that we had built, and watch some of our young leaders really take the initiative and come forward and be successful. And I love seeing our people succeed. So that's been a lot of fun, especially, like I said, the last 3-4 years as we've got that foundation in place. We've got better at bringing in other teams, other acquisitions, and just watching the success of the whole company and individuals as those opportunities have come up.
Awesome. Well, I also wanted to ask too, if there was there's a lot of growing firms. Most of the people here are part of our hot firm, fast growing companies list, but to be in the top few, it's a different wiring, than a lot of firms in the industry have, and just that appetite, ambition, and I guess standard of growth, it's just, that's part of our culture and who we are. So I wanted to ask each of you if there was a defining event or a spark or catalyst that was a game changer, that really changed your trajectory from, the average growth rate to something really different. Was there a specific thing, or is it always kind of how you've been wired?
I can jump in to take that one to start. I think to grow the way I think all of the firms that make the list are growing, and you mentioned it, Jamie, is it really has to be a central part of your culture, which means that it needs to permeate all of the facets of the organization and be something that everybody in the organization really is willing to commit to. And something that I think probably folks at Anser get tired of me saying, and is even a joke at times, is that to grow the way we're all growing means that there's going to be some uncomfortable moments, right? Growth of any type, even as we're all growing up in our lives, when you're really growing, when you're really taking strides, there's some discomfort. And so we just try very, very consistently within our culture to acknowledge that we want to be committed to growth. And part of that means that we'll have some uncomfortable moments, but we're going to come together to move past those because we know what that will ultimately bring, which, again, going back to the organic growth as a foundation, means additional opportunities for the assets of our company, our people, to grow their careers with us and not need to look somewhere else to take that next step in their careers.
I can go next. I think in 2012 we went through an alignment process coming out of the recession, and we created this big vision of where we wanted to go, and we looked at everything we were doing and identified the things that we were our differentiators, let's call them, and really focused on that. And I think that was a defining moment, and from that point forward is really where we saw we put together the foundation after that, and then saw the exponential growth.
I think for me, growth is a byproduct and not a primary objective of leadership. And so I think, for me personally, I'm hardwired toward leadership. Always wanted to lead an organization that in any given pursuit, had a great opportunity at it. And when you look at the opportunities open to smaller firms versus larger firms, really the ability to act much more strategically. I think by and large, the larger the firm, if run correctly, you just have more resources, you have more coverage, and you just have much more opportunity to be an industry leader. So I think out of some of the disappointments of not winning assignments or being told we weren't big enough or being told we didn't have a presence in a certain city, that's really where those moments that fueled the need for the growth.
Well, that's a great follow-up to that too, what was an unexpected lesson that you learned along the way to the path to growth?
I don't know if it's unexpected, but I feel like we continue to learn, throughout our growth story, the same lesson over and over, which is that we just can't communicate enough. As you're growing, it means there's a fair amount of change within the organization, and what you were yesterday is something new tomorrow. And no matter how much time and effort we put into communicating, we have a mantra, 5 times, 5 different ways, means that we've done it once. But you really just continue to learn every day that we can always do more and we can always be better in communicating throughout the organization as we continue to evolve what we do and the capabilities that we bring to the table.
I think at every, I've often reflected on the fact that at every sort of step of the growth or meaningful next level, there's a whole new set of things that you learn. I often joke that I probably get paid way too much for all the on-the-job training, but in all seriousness, until you've run a company of a certain size, until you've dealt with a certain amount of complexity, you haven't had the opportunity to do that before. So I think you really have to be open to the fact that no matter how big you get, no matter how much experience you get, that next layer is going to have some things that you, number one, probably didn't anticipate, and number two, for you and your leadership, those will be the growth opportunities.
Paul, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I think those challenges, every step of the way, there's a new challenge, and you grow every step of the way. You'd think that someday you'd get there, but you never do. I mean, I look forward, and it's just as daunting as when I was looking forward when I first became CEO. I mean, our vision is huge, and but we always find a way to get there. We learn along the way. We bring in the resources when we need that additional consulting, and we figure it out. So yeah.
Well, I guess I wasn't hoping to hear that we never figure it out and we're just always underqualified, because I think everyone kind of feels that way, right? Like we're consistently underqualified for the job that we have now and the next job. And as a leader, you're in a position of tricking people into thinking that you know what's going on. So that sounds like a lot of fun. Great sales pitch for that, that role. But I did want to kind of push on that point a little bit, because something we've heard a lot this year, it's just been a huge topic, has been burnout, and burnout at the senior leadership level. So have you all, how do you manage to stay inspired, engaged, and curious about what you're doing in a genuine way, and make sure that you're, I guess, surrounding yourself with the conversations that keep you kind of thinking about what's next? It's been a tough year for that, but I think also for a lot of CEOs that have been with the firms that you all have been with for a while, it can be hard, I think, to stay kind of, at that bleeding edge of your abilities too. So how do you all navigate that?
I think this has been probably one of the single most difficult years to do that. I think that it's kind of interesting. I'm used to being on the road 3 to 4 days a week, and then COVID hits. And actually the first month or so was kind of energizing, that, you get a chance to recharge your batteries, and you feel just as connected with people, and you're not going through all the wear and tear. But I think as time goes on, I would venture to say that so many of us are energized by the people connection. And then the Zoom life is, I have found it just be so intense. I'm in the Midwest, my team's, 2 executives are on the East Coast. So I start with a call at 6:30 in the morning, and Zoom all the way through, and barely get a bathroom break through as the day goes on. So I think in a lot of ways, this is more intense without the joys of the human interaction and team building and all of that, which for me personally has meant just more work on me, finding things that personally energize me, so that I'm coming back to the job fresh. Because, quite frankly, at least my experience has been, Monday feels pretty much like Wednesday or Friday behind the Zoom camera.
Yeah, I think the challenges of 2020, that's kind of what gets me up in the morning, is the challenges. If it wasn't challenging, I don't think I'd want to do it. So, the challenges of 2020 and having to find new ways to communicate with your staff, to find new ways to communicate with your clients, find new ways to we recently did an acquisition, find new ways to still do what you're used to doing is really challenging, but honestly, that's what gets me excited. So I live off the challenge, and so does my team. So
I think it's something for me that I haven't done a very good job of this year, is staying from getting too caught up in just the myriad of new challenges that this year has brought. And I think our entire senior leadership team, we've actually had some conversations here recently. You can see it even in our PTO use as a collective group. We just haven't done a very good job of individually and then collectively encouraging each other to take a step away, turn off the video conferences that go 12 hours plus a day. The biggest thing I think for me is always remembering that we don't have to know all the answers today, and just being willing to say, what we don't know right now, but we're working on it, and we'll address it and figure it out as we go. And even just from a personal standpoint, giving myself some permission, and then organizationally for our team some permission to say, we don't know yet. But we know we're going to continue looking at it, and we'll come up with the right approach when we do. And when we do, we'll share it then.
All right, so probably my last questions here. I've got a couple more before I'm gonna have to jump off, but looking out into the future, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, what do you hope that we really see within your organizations, within our industry? What are some things that you really are looking forward to in the future?
Our vision as a company, is to be a nationally renowned leader in our industry. And we want to do it the right way. We want to do it by having clients that trust us, by having competitors respect. We want to have it by having employees that love to work for us. So really that's our vision, and that's really what I hope to see Westwood continue to strive for and become in the end.
Well, and you're doing so much of what you're doing. Paul, I think you're speaking on more panels at our conference than I am at this point. You got to stop winning all these awards.
I think the next 10 to 15 years will be, I think we will see a rate of change and a compounded rate of change that will be dizzying compared to where we have been. The estimates are that 80 million jobs will be either automated or eliminated through the change process. And I think for all of our industries, there's this opportunity to really kind of pivot, say for the traditional design and architecture and engineering, from being as much thinkers as doers to really pivoting to much more advisory and thinking and consultative, as the payment for drawing drawings goes away. And I think, everybody will be on that race, but, there's an opportunity, I think, to do it in ways that are high touch, that are really innovative, that will not only spur subparts of the industry, but will be really great opportunities for leadership.
I very, very similar components to what Paul and Ozzie just shared in terms of being seen as an industry leader and respect from peers and clients. It's in our name. I couldn't agree more with the advisory piece and really trends that we see moving that way. The biggest factor that I'd add is, for us, if I look out 15, 20 years from now, I bring it back to what our organization is, which is individuals and our staff and our people. So what I see is continuing to want to create an organization that is, 15, 20 years from now, people who are just joining us today are still in their careers with us, leading the organization, and see it as a fulfilling part of their entire life. And continue to grow and drive additional diversity and inclusion across the organization as we do that as well. And I think we have to acknowledge, as an industry as a whole, we're not great on that front. So I think there's industry opportunities on that front as well. I know that if we do that, in some ways it's sort of a easy way out to make that statement, but I fundamentally know that if we do that as an organization and we have the best individuals in the industry, part of our company, wanting to be part of our company with consistency. The way we provide value to our clients, and then the way that we do that with some discipline to drive business results will continue to be an industry leader. If we get it wrong with our people, then the other steps can't take place. And so I really distill it down to that as the vision for what we want to do over the next 15, 20 years.
I love that each of you focused on something very, very different in terms of defining your answer to that. Do any of you want to follow up on something that one of the other panelists said?
Yeah, I do think it is all about, we are a people business. And I think that, helping people in this new paradigm of how the world is going to be, to help people to find, on one hand, things becoming so much more data-driven and artificial intelligence-driven, and on the other hand, remaining true to being in a people business, as Bryan talked about, and helping our people to be successful in a whole new way, I think is part and parcel of the challenge for us as leaders.
All right, my last question before I drop off here. This is something that has been instilled in me. And when I say instilled, I mean beaten into me from Mark Zweig from the first day I've joined the company. How many unread emails are in your inboxes right now?
Very few. What I'm very guilty of is not moving my emails out of my inbox, right? So there are hundreds or more that are in my inbox, but I'm pretty good about at least seeing what an email is about, and kind of my discipline is shuffle the ones that I can read later to later in the night, address the ones that I need to during the day. But in my case, very few.
6.
I have 3. That's how many I've gotten since we've been talking. So, in the last 30 minutes, I got 6. So, or 3, I mean.
And I think those answers are not surprising. I think if you're gonna run an organization that is going to move as quickly as a high growth organization has to, I think the leaders tend to be ones that process very quickly. And I think I think one of the challenges for me has been trying to find teams that do want to process that quickly, as opposed to the speed at which most people, in a more mature business process things.
When I first called Zweig, I don't know, 6 years ago, something like that, I talked to the front desk person. I asked a question, told her what I was looking for, and she said, "I'll have someone get back to you." And Mark Zweig called me 4 minutes later, and I was just overwhelmed that the boss got back to me, within 5 minutes. So.
And he must have been in the bathroom, or
right. Well, they had to call him to find him, or he was on another line, I'm sure, because he's immediate, and he still is. When I text him, when I do whatever, he's back to me extremely fast, and that's leadership. That's how you get the rest of your team to do it.
All right, Bryan, how many emails?
Oh, I said 6 after Ozzie, right before Paul, although I think it just went up to 7. Yep.
I got 4 now.
Good, we'll follow back up on this question towards the end, right?
Yeah.
All right, Chad.
Okay, well, great, and thanks, Jamie Claire, for that. And so this provides a good segue, talking about your earlier days of growth. What advice would you give leaders in these smaller firms who are wearing lots of hats, dealing with all the emails, the phone calls, and they're really struggling to get focus and the resources necessary to drive significant growth? How did you rise up out of that?
I can I can probably start with that. I definitely understand that challenge. When I first started out as CEO, I felt that, I think I had, I don't know what it was a ridiculous amount of direct reports, and trying to do everything myself. And, I finally got to a point, I worked through some consulting. I joined a CEO roundtable for some advice, and you don't have to feel like you have to do it all, you need to build a team around you that fills in the spots that maybe you're not as good at. Focus on what you're good at, whether it's business development, whether it's technical side, whether it's the financial side, and build a team around you that fills in your weak spots. And if you can't afford to bring them on full time, like I said in the beginning, I used a number of consultants that just had a better understanding of what I was trying, a better understanding to help me accomplish what I was trying to do.
Yeah, I love that. The direct reports, you've got all of these people, but it's still lonely at the top, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's really where that CEO roundtable comes in.
Mm-hmm.
I think a couple things. One, and again, our firm was 14 people when I walked in the door, so that pretty dramatic path along the way. But I think one of the consistent things that I see with companies that have achieved growth versus companies that don't is the CEOs or owner or whoever is the driver of that, their ability, and saying in just different words what Paul said, which is working on the business instead of in the business. Really being able to let go of, keep the quality that is driving the business, but find the right people where you're not so instrumental in the day-to-day running of the business. I'd say the other thing is as you accomplish growth, I think one of the hardest things for me has been to just accept that you're going to outgrow people. And if I think about 3 years ago, we went from 100 million to 175 million. When you think even at the senior ranks, how many people can make that kind of jump? And do you still have the right team at that new size? And having the courage to reward those people, and if it means making changes, making those changes, I think are two key pieces of advice I would give.
Agree with everything Ozzie and Paul have said. I think maybe the other piece I would add is knowing when you need to add that next piece, that next team member, that next resource, and when you can go a bit longer before adding that next piece and that next resource, which doesn't mean maybe that you can entirely ignore it, but you do need to, somebody will need to bridge that gap, but can they bridge that gap effectively? And I think that's how you at least turn the growth into profitable growth, which I think is ultimately the goal, because that's a healthy organization and a healthy firm. So I think that's the only addition I would make.
Yeah, and I see that as a big struggle for firms, is that whole, how do we outgrow? I mean, we're going to outgrow people. We've got to make sure we bring new people in. If we're just going to stick with and not confront the things that hold us back, then we'll continually be held back. I loved your answers, all three of you, what you guys said to Jamie Claire's final question, 15, 20 years out, and recognizing there's aspects of this business, yes, that become a commodity, the drawing. I mean, when I first got out of school, I was paid to draw lines on a Mylar sheet, but the consistency through your answers was a focus on the people. And, we're talking a lot about employee experience. And one thing we noticed when we were doing both the Hot Firm and the Best Firms contest, and Best Firms data set actually was active in March. And what was interesting, the the lowest ranked of all of the 110 items year after year is always communication. So employees are least satisfied with communication in their firms, been year after year after year. Yet after COVID, that shot up. And there was a lot of positive responses around how CEOs are communicating, bringing people together, which is ironic considering that people were not together in the office in the convenient ways we gather people. But I've talked to a lot of leaders who said, yeah, at first it was weekly all hands meetings, then it was biweekly, then it was monthly, then it was, and so I'm curious, how are you keeping communication going in your firm and doing your best to maintain the employee experience, where I think we can all recognize this has gone on longer than we had hoped, obviously, and expected. And what do we do? What are you doing today to keep people gathered and connected when I assume you probably all three have some, a portion of your staff still at home?
I can start. A real foundation for a lot of our communication has been an intranet that we actually had launched at the beginning of this year, which for us is really a lot of effort with ambassadors within offices and markets creating continual content for the intranet. And then we also got some feedback, which I think is important when we talk about communication. I think we often think about it as a one-way street, and it actually has to be a two-way street. So we try to foster a lot of feedback from our staff as well. What are we doing well? What are we not doing well? Where do we have challenges? So some of the feedback we got was that we could continue to do more to distill down information that's available, to send it in a couple different forms. And so we launched some ability to send text push notices with reminders of contact from the intranet. And then we've tried to use a lot of different mediums to continue to drive communication, both on the intranet as well as beyond the intranet, including video, pre-recorded live town halls, written summaries of information, the text push stream. I think it will probably always, and this is my theory, this is an endless pursuit of something that we'll never achieve. I don't think there exists anywhere a group of people who communicate enough or effectively enough. So it's kind of for us this pursuit of a goal that I don't think we'll ever get to, but I know through continually pursuing it and trying to achieve it, we'll do as well a job as we can, and maybe be a leader in terms of how we're able to communicate.
Awesome. Hey, Paul, you're on mute.
I'd agree with that. We're from a communication side, communication's so important, and we're so much a people business, but at the same time, we're a business with a lot of introverts in it that don't like to communicate. So I don't think it could be any, there's probably few industries that are as challenging as ours is. In the beginning of COVID, I was putting out 3 messages a week. And like you said, then they went to 2 messages a week, 1 message a week. We've always done a monthly town hall. We've had to videotape that for a number of reasons here recently. So it's not quite as interactive as we'd like it to be. But we've also, on our intranet, we've opened up lines where people can ask questions and so forth, emails like we were just talking about. We're very open to, we have a pretty flat organization, and I think most people feel comfortable, talking with me or with senior leaders across the company. So that helps to some extent. I put out a president's message every month, but yeah, we focus a lot on trying to be one team, even though it's really hard with everybody at home. It's certainly far more difficult than it's been in the past, and we can never communicate enough. We'll never reach the level where we finally got there. We're never going to get there.
That's right.
We've had a variety of things that we've done early on. we created a COVID task force headed by my COO, who's just done an amazing job of, so there's a weekly update on any COVID related issues. There have been a steady stream of surveys that people have really, we've had 85% plus participation in these surveys. And then we've been very transparent about what's on people's minds. Obviously that has permeated our town halls. So, regular updates. I started and will probably continue after COVID a weekly video that talks about things that are top of mind for me. And that has become a really kind of two-way. I'll put the video out, but I get a lot of response from teammates, and it's an opportunity for them to reach out directly to me. And then I give our leadership a really a lot of compliments here in terms of just non-formal communication, happy hours that really are kind of fun, that have different themes to them or trivia parts to them. In many ways, because we're 4 regions and 25 offices, I think people at some level have gotten to know each other more personally through all this, especially at levels that are beneath the leadership level than they otherwise would have. But it's, just compliments across the board in terms of everybody stepping up and being part of that communication, as opposed to feeling isolated and complaining about a lack of communication.
Excellent. We probably have time for one more, and it's tied to something I've heard, all of you say, and Paul, you just said it, and really talking about the one firm, one culture. And so it's recognizing it's complicated by COVID, but how, as you've grown, like over the entire span of your growth, what have you done to keep that one firm, one culture mindset as you get bigger and bigger and people are more spread out?
I can start. I mean, that's a challenge we talk about a lot. We're in the middle of strategic planning for our next 3-year plan. And it's something, we talk about. We've got 15 offices and what a challenge it is today. So when we have 30 offices at the end of our 3-year plan, how are we gonna maintain that? So some of the things we do, as a company, we're a single profit center. So we don't necessarily compete against our offices or against our markets. If part of our team is doing good, all of our team is profiting from that, when it comes to profit sharing, when it comes to things like that. Also emphasizing a consistent brand. We do our very best to look the same in Dallas as we do in Minneapolis, as we do in Las Vegas, as we do in Philadelphia. And I think that's really important. I talked earlier a little bit about our monthly town halls. It's an opportunity to talk to everyone, and we bring up in our town halls, different things that are going on across the company. So everybody has an idea of some of the good things that are happening, that they wouldn't normally have the opportunity to know, but they can see that through our town hall. And really, our core values are all around team. When we went out a little over a year ago, and I visited each office, and we went through a brainstorming exercise, and we said, what makes us successful? What do you believe makes us successful? And overwhelmingly, team came back in that. It was number one in I believe it was 9 out of 17 meetings that we had, and it was number 2, number 3 in the other meetings. So team is a big focus at Westwood, and it's a challenge though, making sure that we can keep that one team spirit across multiple offices and multiple markets.
Excellent.
Agree that we're not one P&L, but the rewards are at a largely at a one firm approach. So I think the what you reward is ultimately what people will respond to. We drive, which is a more complicated operating model, but we drive a matrix in which our practice leaders are responsible for really largely best practice in sales, and that inherently drives a partnership between the geography and the practice. We also work with our practices to see how different practices can complement each other. Healthcare industry loves to take lessons from hospitality. Workplace loves to take lessons from retail and hospitality. So even within the practices, how can they glean either lessons about consumer brand or our clients broadly and help each other? And then again, the financial rewards then are beneficial because everybody wins.
I'll add a slightly different angle, which is that I think no matter how you're organized, and even if you're consolidating, under a single brand and adapting similar processes and procedures and benefits and all the best practices, I think generally everybody is using these days in terms of integrating the firm. I think what it ultimately comes down to is there an organization, and it starts with a really talented leadership team we have at Anser, who's willing to actually take the time to make it happen. I think there are a lot of different ways it can be drawn on paper, and the benefit of those are entirely reliant upon the willingness and desire of an organization and a management team to go effectively implement it. And so, our Anser advisory really has nothing to do with me. I think it has to do with our entire leadership team, our entire organization, and anything we've been able to accomplish or will continue to be able to accomplish is just truly a reflection of them. And so is our growth. So I think that's how we've ultimately been achieving it. And as we grow, we'll refine some of the ways it's shown on paper. But I'm very confident that we'll continue to stay a single firm and have that collegial culture because of the commitment of everybody across the organization being bought into that, and leaders demonstrating it every day with the decisions that they make.
Excellent. We've been looking a lot recently at the connections between our best firms to work for contests and the hot firms, and how, you invest in the employees and it drives the client experience, and that then results in growth and sales and all of the good things. And so it's all very important stuff that we really think about the people of this industry. And that really was the inspiration of our Elevate the Industry mission. It's a focus on the people and driving recruiting and retention to this wonderful profession we've dedicated ourselves to. So thank you, all three of you gentlemen. We're so grateful that you joined us today, sharing your insights with our Elevate audience. All of you have unique perspectives that have resulted in extraordinary success. I can tell you, I have actually written down 7 things here that I'm going to do. So I'm going to thank you for that. So what we're going to do now is we are going to go to our next session, which is our Elevate Her Symposium. Team Drive is going to present the final cohort presentation, capping off 5 weeks of incredible strategies and tactics to advance the AEC profession, helping us solve that #1 challenge in the industry, recruiting and retention. So join us by exiting this session and clicking on the link for the next session. If you've already signed up, go to the conference. If you've not already signed up, go to the conference page, click on the link, it's free. And now transfer to our next session to Elevate the Industry. Thank you, Bryan, Ozzie, and Paul, so much for sharing your insight. And thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you, Chad. Thanks.
Thanks for everything, Chad. Appreciate all you guys do for the industry.
Well, thank you very much. That means a lot. We are all elevating the industry together, and appreciate all of you.